Hey everybody, welcome to the Author on Wheels podcast. I'm your host, John Wood, author of A Fight to Survive. We are finally getting ready to kick off season 6, episode 5 of our podcast with an incredible interview. So grab a drink, pull up a chair, and get ready for the Author on Wheels podcast. On the last episode, I had a very open mic style discussion with Canadian chef and autistic author David Leahy. But today, we're sticking close to home. This morning, I have Chelsea Perry in the studio. We're going to talk about her children's book, The Bristle Whistle, which is available for purchase now. Her short bio says she's a 3 on the, I'm going to screw this up, Enneagram,
Yeah.
an ENFJ-A. Her top strength is learning. If she could be a professional student, she would be. She loves to draw and journal. She loves her planners. She's a creative visionary that loves project management, math, organization, and coffee. Writing a children's book was never in her grand plans, but when she had the idea to write The Bristle Whistle, she had to take it and run with it. That right off the bat is amazing. Like, seriously, someone like you that had not even an inkling of an idea to write a book, just took the idea for this and ran with it. Right off the bat, tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about the journey.
Yeah. So my oldest son is autistic. And when I was working in ministry full time, and I was very busy, it was very hard to maintain all of the mom responsibilities of leading a house and, again, being a mom and a wife. And part of the responsibilities of the tooth fairy were just stressful. I hated
Yeah.
it. And because he's autistic, he has some sensory issues. So he would just pull out his tooth or not really, he just didn't like it. He was a little scary at first. And my husband and I, we worked opposite shifts. So it was very hard to make sure that the tooth fairy responsibilities got done. And one day I'm sitting there and I'm like, dude, this is for the birds. Like, I cannot figure out why someone would put a tooth under a pillow because you can't find it. It is like finding a needle in a haystack. Our boys share a bedroom and the door squeaks. And my oldest son is on the top bunk. So I'm short. I'm trying to get up to the top bunk to find the tooth to no avail. I mean, it was just nuts. And so I started talking to my husband and I was like, babe, there has to be something like different. So I do what everybody does when they don't know and you Google it. So
Exactly.
I started looking up like different tooth fairy ideas and I saw like a tooth fairy pillow and I saw those kind of things, but that wasn't speaking to me. I was like, that's not enough. That doesn't explain why we're moving the tooth out from under the pillow. I just was not here for it. I'm like, I want the whole package. And I looked and looked and looked and looked, and I did not find anything. And I'm like, okay, well, then I'm going to create it because this is awful. And I can't be the only mom dealing with this. And so the more moms that I talked to, because when I had this idea, I'm like, okay, is it really just me? Am I being melodramatic? And it's really not this big of a problem. But the more that I talk to moms, the more that I talk to special needs moms, 100% it is like a huge problem. So I just went ahead and created it. I wrote it. I'm like, okay. And all the pieces just started to come together. Something really cool. And John, I remember you from Navarre High School, but I used to teach there. And the girl who actually illustrated my book was one of my students at Navarre High School. And when I had that idea to write the book about the tooth fairy, I am still friends with her on Facebook. And I reached out to her and I'm like, you have to do this for me. I know that it will be amazing because you're so talented. And how cool is it that we met when you were in high school and the pieces just really started to come together.
Wow. I'm blown away. Not only did you just answer 2 of my questions, but you literally just spoke so off the cuff and like, I love this. I love this. This is why I do what I do. So thank you. Like,
Yeah.
and honestly, it took me a minute to remember you because I'm like,
Yeah.
and then I had to, and then when I looked, I was like, that's her. Okay. I guess now I'll go to my third question and ask you, what advice would you give those listening who possibly want to write a book, but they're having trouble thinking of ideas and motivating themselves?
So I'm going to say something that is not earth shattering, but it's true. It's just do it. It's not going to write itself. And I'm a believer. So I believe that God gave you the reason or God gave you the idea to write whatever you want to write. So it's our obedience to follow him and just to write it. As far as like the process, it can be a little overwhelming, especially because you're forging ground that you've never forged before. But luckily, there are people who have that you can reach out to for guidance. One of my favorite things when I go to do book signings or events is where I have young people, or not even young people, but people who want to write a book, this exact question. And they're like, I have this idea, I just don't know how to do it. And I'm like, please reach out to me because I would love to be a resource for you. And to answer any questions that people have about writing books, because it's not that hard. And I think we overcomplicate it because we think, well, who am I to write a book? Is anybody going to read it? Is it worth it? Is it expensive? How do I publish it? Should I self-publish? Go with a publisher? All these things are things that people go through when they're first writing a book.
Exactly.
So thinking of ideas, like to answer your question, thinking of ideas or motivating yourself to write, just set a non-negotiable time for yourself to write. In this case, for me, it was when my kids went to bed. So my kids would go to bed. I would sit in a chair that I'm sitting in right now, and I would write. And it was late at night, no distractions, but it was my non-negotiable time to get my ideas on paper. And that way I could make sure that it got done. And then towards the end of my journey of writing my book, my husband and I actually went on a vacation in the mountains. And that was another really like very a time of solitude where I could sit down and actually finish, edit, make sure everything was the way I wanted it to be. And then that was
Right.
when I actually like put the rubber stamp of approval. We're done on that.
That's incredible. Like, that is incredible. I have been published now for exactly 2 years. It just actually hit 2 years ago, a few days ago.
Congratulations.
And I have not done my first ever book signing at all. Like, I have not. I have tried to put it together, but it's just like, none of it comes together. It's just like, I don't necessarily want to do it by myself, but I'm also like, maybe, I don't know. It's just, it hasn't come together yet, but
Yeah.
maybe in the long run.
Yeah.
Where can where can everybody who's listening today contact you in regards to your book?
The best place is going to be on my website. My email is listed on there, but it's info, info at bristlewhistle.com.
Perfect. This was perfect. This was short, sweet, to the point, and it's gonna get your story out there in the hands of millions of people. I can tell you that right now.
Well, I hope so.
I can tell that you're gonna have a lot of good feedback from this. Guys, that's the end of today's quick episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'd like to thank our guest today for joining us on the Author on Wheels podcast. Before I
Thank
go,
you.
I'd like to impose a question. How are you telling your story? We all have a story to tell, and it's up to us to find our unique way of telling our story. Because as I always say, a story is only as good as the person telling it. So with that being said, thank you for listening. We will see you on the podcast next time. All the links to everything, including my merchandise and my book, will be listed in the episode notes. But we will see you on the next episode. Thank you. Hey, do you like supporting Author on Wheels? Want to wear the fancy logo with pride? Well, now you can, and so much more. You can choose from the OG Author on Wheels logo, or This Author Still Stands for America logo. A popular one this year is the Your Story is Like Your Fingerprint logo. Or you can simply rock the You Don't Have to Have Wheels to Tell Your Story logo. These designs come in many selected items such as t-shirts, hoodies, and sweatshirts, polos, tank tops, baseball caps, sportswear, kids clothing, and cool accessories such as cuddle toys and aprons, buttons, pillows and mugs, drinkware, bags and backpacks, and even some awesome stickers. Head on over to the Author on Wheels merch shop and get yourself some awesome new merch today and continue your fight, my friend.